Thursday to Sunday. I was getting death threats. Women were picketing our hotel. I couldn't go out, but it hurt like hell. I was scared to death because I knew I did something really bad because I couldn't open my eye. Any kind of air, it just was burning because I just shredded it. And they said, we have to operate, you're dying. And I said, well, give me to the morning. I said, I feel it healing is what I told them. And overnight, this thing basically just closed up. Doctors couldn't believe it. So I had no idea who was picking fifth. And the next thing I know, I get a call from Chicago. They're up next. And they said, we're taking you. I said, okay. That's how I knew I was going to Chicago. If you want something bad enough, you got to work for it. You know, nothing's going to given to you. I thought our team in '91 in Philly, we should have won the Super Bowl. We had the best defense in the league. I mean, nowadays you just kind of run past the QB, you get a flag for windburn or something. I don't know what the hell. I can't even watch it anymore.
First of all, this is my voice. I'm Tim Green, and I have ALS. This podcast is not about ALS or living with disabilities. I don't want you to feel sorry for me. I don't feel sorry for me. I am a father of 5 with a marriage that's lasted for over 33 years. I am a #1 New York Times best-selling author of 41 books, an NFL first-round pick with an 8-year career. I worked on TV for Fox Sports, Good Morning America, Court TV, and Extra. I've hosted BattleBots, A Current Affair, and Find My Family. And I am also a practicing attorney. In this podcast, we're diving into real-life stories. From triumphs to trials, we'll explore the extraordinary in the ordinary. Join me, Tim Green, and my son Troy each week for real conversations, laughter, and insights. Because life is a journey, and everyone's got a story. My voice in today's episode is powered by 11 Labs. Jim McMahon, you were a household name back in the 80s and 90s, and football fans still know you to this day. You led the Chicago Bears to their only Super Bowl victory in the franchise's history. You were known for speaking your mind, and I hope you won't leave anything on the table today. Welcome to our podcast, Jim.
Hey, great to be here. Great to be with you guys, and look forward to this.
You were worried about being shot as you left the Superdome, leaving the field in New Orleans just after your Super Bowl victory. What's the story behind that?
Well, during the week, a reporter went on television and decided to say that, or tell everybody that I had called all the women of New Orleans sluts and the men stupid. He said he had heard it on a radio podcast or a radio show that I had done, supposedly. And I never said that. I don't know where it came from. I never did the radio show that morning that they were talking about. And so, I was getting death threats from Thursday to Sunday. I was getting death threats. Women were picketing our hotel. I couldn't go out. I mean, I was having a great time Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We had a lot of fun in New Orleans. But Thursday morning is when I got woken up by the irate fans. And then I found out supposedly what I had did, which I didn't do. And so, I was just, I see all the crazy movies, the Black Dark Sunday or whatever that movie was. And, if crazy fan wants to take you out, they'll take you out. And we were practicing at the old Saints facility, and there was an apartment complex that overlooked that practice field. And so, anybody could have taken a shot from there. So I was wearing different uniform or a different jersey. Nobody wanted to stand by me at practice in the huddle or anywhere else. They go, we're going to get shot because of you, And I said, hell, it wasn't even, I didn't even do anything. And so, it was I don't remember a whole lot about the game just because I wanted to get the hell out of the city and the state with my life.
At that time, obviously you were known for speaking your mind. Did people believe you when you said that you didn't say it?
Well, it took me a while to even go back to talk to the press once I had heard, what had happened. I'm like, are you kidding me? Where did this come from? I said, I've been talking to you guys every day, doing what I'm supposed to do. And all of a sudden this comes out of nowhere and it's with no verification, but this guy, almost got me killed. And so, it's just, it boggles the mind what people will believe. And so I finally went out and said, look, I didn't even do the radio show. And it wasn't a good friend of mine in Chicago who supposedly the show was on. And he actually backed me up. He said, no, he never said that. He never was on my show this morning. And so, plus the show was at 6 a.m. Hell no, we were just coming in.
The media gets away with so much. Anyways, I read that you grew up in a large family, one of 6 kids. Where were you in the order, and who were you closest with?
Well, I was the second of 6. I had an older brother who's 11 months older than me. Then a younger brother who's about a little over a year younger than me. Then I had 3 younger sisters. My brothers, obviously, we were probably closest because we played sports together growing up. Our dad was our coach all the way through Little League, up until we got to high school. So we were always pretty much on the same team. And so, yeah, and we got in a lot of fights, grew up in San Jose. And back then it was just pretty much like a migrant farm working town. There was a lot of nurseries and orchards. There was no Silicon Valley, none of that stuff back then. And so, yeah, we had a good neighborhood, a lot of good athletes in our neighborhood. So we grew up playing sports. That's what we did.
Well, it's great you guys were always playing sports, but were they ever a bad influence on you, or maybe it was the other way around?
No, I was pretty much the black sheep of the family, I think. I was the one with a tendency to get in trouble. I didn't do well in school. I hated school. I couldn't sit still for that long. Back then, they probably would have diagnosed me with ADD or ADHD, whatever those letters are going to be this time around. I was just a hyper kid. I did not want to be sitting in a classroom. I wanted to be out playing and like most young boys, I think. And so, yeah, I was always, it seemed like I was always in trouble. I did a lot of dishes as a kid because when I was in trouble, I had to do dishes. And with 6 kids and mom and dad, there's a lot of dishes. So I hated that.
I heard you were a miscreant at a young age. I have the impression that your dad ran a tight ship. Or was it your mom?
Well, they both had equal share in that department. We were more afraid of mom, probably. Mom could wield a bad broomstick or frying pan. It didn't really matter. Pops, we can get away with a little bit more with Pops. But, like I said, he was our coach. He actually kicked me off his own team. When I was 12 years old, he caught me smoking. And so he kicked me off the baseball team. And that's when I decided I better start, wising up and doing what I'm supposed to do. And because when they took away sports, that's when I knew that this was serious. I had to straighten it up, and that's when I did. I was basically a little hoodlum until I was 13, and then tried to change it around, and it was tough to do, with your friends, and even the teachers would notice, hey, what's gotten into you? I said, well, I got baseball taken away from me. And I said, that was my life. I always wanted to play baseball. And so if I couldn't do that, then I better straighten up.
What was that like when you got home? Like, did you try and appeal to your mom? Like, hey, make dad put me back on the team, or no?
Oh, no. My mom told me if he puts me back on the team, they're getting divorced. My mom was not having any of it. If I got lower than a B, if I came home with a C on my report card, I had to miss games or practice or the season sometimes. So I had to keep up with my schoolwork, and which, like I said earlier, I hated. I just was not a classroom kind of guy, and but it worked out. I mean, I got through it. My junior high teacher said I wouldn't make it to 20, and here I am, 65. So
imagine a teacher saying something like that today. Hey, one of the things you're famous for is wearing sunglasses all the time, but many people don't know there's a reason for that, and it's not an endorsement of Ray-Bans. Please tell us the story behind the sunglasses.
Okay. I was 6 years old, and my brothers and I were playing Cowboys and Indians. We didn't have Xbox and all that back in the day. And I guess this particular day I was a cowboy because I had a gun holster on. And you know how you tie your gun holster down around your knee. So we got done playing. I go to take the holster off. I can't get the damn knot out of that where I tied it. I messed around with it. I couldn't get it. So I went and got a fork out of the kitchen. And I started messing with that knot, and bam, just like that. I mean, that proves the hand's quicker than the eye because I got 2 prongs dead center of my eye, and when it went in, it kind of went sideways. So I kind of shredded the pupil, and that was not fun. It hurt like hell. I was scared to death because I knew I did something really bad because I couldn't open my eye. Any kind of air, it just was burning because I just shredded it. So I didn't tell my mom for a while, and I was sitting in the living room, kind of whimpering. And she finally just says, what are you crying about? And I finally told her. This probably a couple hours had passed, and I said, well, I stuck this fork in my eye. And she freaks out like most moms would, and she called my dad up, who was working. He was working 2 and 3 jobs at the time. We only had one car, and she called him. And this happened sometime in the afternoon, and he couldn't get home until about probably 7 or 8 that night. He goes, "Hey, I can't leave work right now." I talked to him on the phone. I said, "Yeah, I'll be all right. I've been sitting there for a couple hours already." So when he finally got home, he tried to look at my eye, and he saw there's no blood in the eye, so it wasn't gushing blood, but it was just red, and he saw the tear and took me right to the hospital. They wanted to operate right then, but I had just eaten something, and they're not going to pump a 6-year-old stomach to do an operation. So I just remember my dad talking to the doctor all night, just please save his eyeball. He just didn't want me to have a glass eye when I was 6 years old. So the guy did a hell of a job. This is 1965. And he did a hell of a job to save my eye. I didn't sever the retina. I nicked the retina, but I shredded the iris, I guess it is. They had to cut a big chunk of my iris out so my eyeball doesn't contract like normal people does. And light comes out, your eye contracts. Mine does not. It stays big where they cut a big hole out. And so any kind of light, even now today, it's not real sunny here in Arizona. I got the shades down, and you see me squinting a little bit with my eye. It's any kind of light is bothersome, and it's been that way since I was 6 years old. So I've been wearing shades since I was 6. Got a lot of fights because you show up at first grade with a pair of sunglasses on, you're going to get in a fight. And but that's the reason for the sunglasses. It's never going to change. They can't do anything really to the eye. I mean, I don't really see out of it much. I mean, it was mostly closed anyway. If you saw pictures of me on the field, a lot of times my eye was closed. But I grew up with it. I never considered it a handicap and never used that as a crutch.
You originally wanted to be a professional baseball player. When did that dream die? Because from what I've read about you, you have this tremendous will, and that must have been a difficult decision.
Well, it died in college, actually. That was one of the reasons I went to BYU. They were one of the 2 schools that said I could play both sports. I went back to Nebraska, Oklahoma State. I went up to Boise because I'd never been to Idaho. And the only 2 schools that said I could play both sports was Nevada, Las Vegas, or BYU. And Vegas happened to be my last trip, and had a really good time in Vegas, as most people do. And I came home and said, "Pops, I'm going to Vegas, man." He says, "No, you're not. You're not going to Vegas." I said, "Pops, listen to me." He says, "I don't care what you say. You're not going to Vegas." Because they offered me a heck of a deal, car, money, easy job at a casino. Who knows what could have happened. But I probably would have ended up playing baseball had I stayed at UNL or went to UNLV. So I ended up going to BYU, and they told me I could play baseball, but they didn't say I couldn't get out of spring football practice. And so I'd play a game of a doubleheader, and I was playing in the outfield back then, and throwing the ball from the outfield and throwing the ball from the pockets, 2 totally different things. And so I'd play a game of a doubleheader, have to run down this big hill, change uniforms, go to football practice, and I got tired. I played like six or 8 games, I think, my freshman year. And then I had to make a decision. And since football was my scholarship, I stuck with that. But to this day, my body regrets the hell out of it. I didn't play baseball because it doesn't feel too good right now, as you know, Timmy. But it was a hard decision, but it ended up working out. I mean, football was really the only job I've ever had. I only had a job for 15 years, and I'm still able to live comfortably. I put all my kids through college and did all the things I'm supposed to do, and still here. So, things worked out. I just know I would feel a hell of a lot different had I played baseball.
Were you worried when you were deciding between BYU? Like, were you worried about the culture there with being a Mormon school and all that?
Well, that was another reason I wanted to go to UNLV. It was more my style, my speed. Like I said, I grew up in San Jose, grew up with the brothers and the Mexicans, and I never really even heard the word Mormon until I moved to Utah my junior year in high school. So I kind of got a taste of it. My dad's job moved him up there, and my older brother got to stay in California, finish out his senior year. And they wanted me to stay as well because I started as a sophomore there in San Jose, and all the coaches wanted me to stay. And my dad said, "No, you're not. I'm not leaving two boys here." So I ended up going up to Roy, Utah, for 2 years. So I kind of got a taste of the Mormon religion, and I found out when we moved that my mom was actually Mormon, but me and my brothers and sisters were all raised Catholic because that's what they did. I guess when my mom and dad got married, you had to sign a paper, what religion are you going to teach your kids? And my dad said, well, they're going to be raised Catholic. So that's what happened. So my mom starts going to the Mormon church, and we're like, hey, what's going on? She goes, yeah, I've always been Mormon. I just, this is what we decided when we got married. So I knew a little bit about it, kind of got a feel for it, but it's a whole different situation at BYU. Provo, Utah and the surrounding areas is really, really Mormon. And as you guys have seen and heard about me, I like to have a good time. I like to enjoy life and have some laughs, and it's hard to do there. But I learned a lot about football and learned a lot about life as well. So it worked out. I mean, it was kind of strange to see me there and get through 5 years. I ended up graduating, I think in 2015. So it took me 37 years to graduate, where I should have done it in the 5 years that I was there because I redshirted a year. But my redshirt year, I go, hey, I can't play football. I'm not going to school either. So I got behind. So I finally went back and I promised my folks that I'd graduate. So I did. I promised LaBelle Edwards I'd graduate. And that's the reason I went back and took 5 classes. And I studied more in those 6 months than I did in 5 years I was there. So got it done and behind me.
What was that like? Was it a weird feeling being back there?
It was not. Well, I did it remotely. I didn't have to go back.
Virtual.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't imagine culture wise. It seems like you and BYU is it's like one of the last fits.
Well, it's not a place where, it's not normal college life. I mean, everybody else in college seems like they have a really fun time, but that's not, it's just different, from what I grew up in.
If the sun bothers you, why'd you end up in Arizona? Just family?
This weather. I like heat. I like dry heat. And I played here in 94 with the Cardinals. And I was only living here for 6 months. And I'm like, I'm going to live here when I retire. Because it only rained like one day. I was wearing shorts and T-shirts, flip-flops every day. That's how I like to live. That's what I'm wearing now. Nice. Shorts, flip-flops, T-shirt.
How did you meet Ron Heller?
I played against him when he was down in Tampa. And then I played with him in Philadelphia. And then we were.
Oh, that's right.
We became roommates. And because when I first got there, he didn't like me at all. He was like, don't talk to me. I don't want to be your friend. Because every time, we go down to Tampa and whoop their ass all the time. And he hated that. And I said, hey, man, you give me a chance. I said, we're going to be roommates. We're going to be best friends. He's like, there's no way. So that first year we weren't roommates the first year, but the next 2 years I was there, we were roommates. And awesome. We're good friends.
Are you still in touch with a lot of guys you used to play with?
I just saw a lot of them. I was just in Chicago for a big card show over the weekend and saw Singletary. I saw Otis Wilson, Thomas Sanders, Matt Suey, Tim Reitman. A lot of my old teammates were there. I didn't see them all, but I was only there a couple hours doing my signing, and I got right back on the plane, came here. It's still cold there, man. I
Yeah.
woke up Sunday morning. It was snowing. I'm like, damn, get me back home.
You've talked about having to move when you were in high school and that you weren't going to do that to your kids. I know that you've said you moved before your senior year from San Jose to Utah. Why did you move? Did you have it out with your parents? And what was your biggest concern?
Well, my biggest concern was going to Utah. I didn't know anything about Utah or Mormons, and I grew, like I said, I grew up in California. I loved it, wanted to stay, um, but my dad wouldn't let me stay. So that's why I ended up there. And then when I got there, I got there probably 2 weeks late from start of training camp. I was playing on a traveling baseball team, and I told my dad, I said, I'm not coming until we lose. We were traveling all over the state. And I said, until we're out of these tournaments, I said, I'm not coming up there. So I was probably a couple weeks late. So when I finally did arrive, I go to the first practice that I had seen, and I got home that night. My dad says, well, how'd it go? And I said, well, I didn't even go to practice. I just sat in the parking lot and watched. He goes, why not? I said, I just wanted to see what was going on. I said, plus, they run the wishbone here. I don't know if you guys remember the wishbone at all, but there's
Sure.
3 running backs, and I'd only seen that on TV. Oklahoma and Texas running that, and so and they had 2 senior quarterbacks. One guy was 6'10". That was funny as hell to see him try to run the triple option. The other kid was a really good athlete, but my dad said, "Well, do you think you can play?" And I said, "Well, if I can't play here, I can't play anywhere." And so I ended up going to practice the next day, and then I was there for about a week of practice, and then the next week was going to be the start of the school year, and so they had a big scrimmage. They have the number 1 offense against the number 3 defense, right? They don't score. Then they put the number 2 offense against the number 2 defense. They don't score. So then they put the number 3 offense against the number 1 defense, and I was the 3 offensive guy. We scored a couple times. And I'd never even done this. I don't know what this is. Not fake the ball to this guy, pitch it to this guy. I was used to dropping back. That's what we did in California. We had passing leagues in the summer. I mean, all we did was throw the ball. And so it was very strange to me, but I ended up starting and doing all right. And then my senior year, luckily we had a guy, a legit 4.3 40 guy in high school. I mean, this white kid could run. If they just get it to him, nobody's going to catch him. But my senior year, they changed it to like a 2-back offense, and I got to throw it a little bit more. So it was a little bit better, but it was very strange that first year.
Your recruiting, I'm almost like surprised you got recruited running the wishbone that much, right? Or did it happen your senior year, or did it carry over from California?
No, my senior year, like I said, we changed it to 2 backs, and I got to throw it a little bit more. So they got to see me throw the ball at least. And that's the big reason, to go to BYU. You got to throw it all the time. I mean, we had, it was so much fun. Everybody talked about it being a complicated offense. To me, it was not. It was very simple. You got 5 guys. All they can do is block. And then the defense can always send one more than you can block. And if you can figure out who that one guy is, it's like shooting fish in a barrel. And to me, it was never that difficult to figure who that guy was.
You wanted to go to the University of Las Vegas, no surprise there. But your father insisted that you go to BYU. You went from Sin City, Las Vegas to the gates of heaven for Mormons, who are some of the nicest people I've had the pleasure of meeting.
Oh, no doubt about it. I married a Mormon. My ex-wife was Mormon. We had we met when we were 18. We raised 4 great kids. We got divorced when we were 50. So we had a pretty good run. We're still good friends. So I have a lot of real good Mormon friends still there in Utah. I never really had a problem with the people or my teammates and coaches. It was the people in the administration that were getting calls from fans, I guess, that were irate that they heard me swear on the sideline or something like that. But that was just me.
Speaking of heaven and religion, I know you grew up Catholic, or maybe that was your cover in college. I couldn't think of a worse thing that could happen to a person than ALS, but I had a religious epiphany and I recommitted myself to Christ. And now I see clearly my mission on earth and the selfish, prideful, and abject sinner I was. Now I am only a regular sinner, but God has blessed me because anything short of ALS wouldn't have gotten my attention. Have you had anything happen to you like that?
Oh, there's no doubt. I believe in the big guy. I've had, like I said, from when I was 6 years old, when I stuck that fork in my eye. I mean, that could have been the end of any kind of career I had. When I was playing for the Bears in 1984, I tore the bottom part of my kidney off in a game, and I was bleeding internally for a couple of days. They wanted to operate and take my kidney out because they said it's not going to close up, but you got a big hole down there. And I said, it's not. So you're not taking my kidney out. My career's over. And so I bled for a couple of days. They gave me a transfusion. They came in on Tuesday night with a transfusion, and they said, we have to operate. You're dying. And I said, well, give me to the morning. I said, I feel it healing is what I told them. And overnight, this thing basically just closed up. Doctors couldn't believe it. So I know that the big guy didn't want my career to be over at that point. Another year, 91, I broke 5 ribs off my sternum during the game, bruised my heart, could have punctured my heart. And so I know somebody's looking out for me. And so, I've got big belief in that. And as you know, I've got a great friend, Steve McMichael, dealing with the same thing you are, Tim. It's horrendous. I commend you guys for hanging in. I mean, it's unbelievable what's going on with you guys, and you're still here and still active, and it's a credit to both of you.
So you absolutely hammered it in college. Was it a typo, or did I read that you set 70 different NCAA records? Please tell us what record stands above the rest for you.
Well, I think the last total I heard was 72 NCAA records my last 2 years. Probably the biggest one was I was the first guy to throw for over 4,000 yards. So when you're the first guy to do something, that's a pretty good accomplishment. I like that one. I mean, I thought I should have won the Heisman my junior year because nobody had ever passed for over 4,000. I think I threw for 4,500 yards. I had 47 touchdowns. So pretty much 4 a game. We lost our opener that year, and that hurt us. Then we won 12 straight, and so we were right there all year long. Like I said, that offense was just fun to play in, man. It was just no matter what you did, you were wrong because we had the skilled players, we had an offensive line that knew what the hell they were doing. Everybody was on the same page. It was just a fun system to play in. Best offense I'd ever played in.
And when you were at BYU, was there a lot of players that ended up going to the NFL, or was it pretty much just you?
No, we had quite a few guys go. We had some linemen go. Of course, after me, Steve Young came after me. Ty Detmer, Robbie Bosco. Just a list of QBs that have played in the league. But a lot of linemen, a lot of defensive players have gone on as well and played. So we had some talent. We had some good players.
Could you tell us about your relationship with Lavelle Edwards, your head coach at BYU?
Yeah, Lavelle was him and I were pretty close. Like I was there for 5 years, and I had to go see him every Monday morning for 5 years, and we'd discuss what I had done for the weekend because he'd get calls from people all over the place because he was here, he was there, he was doing this, he was doing that. There was no cell phones back then, thank God. And so he'd sit me down. He goes, "Well, I heard you were at 5 more pot parties this weekend," and I'd say, "What?" I said, "Where at, Coach?" He goes, "Oh, here in Provo." And I said, "Look, I don't know who has it out for me here, but I said I've never spent a weekend in Provo. I said, as soon as our game is over, I'm in my car. I'm headed towards Ogden. My older brother was at Weber State, and I had a good friend up there. And then my girlfriend, when I first went to BYU, she was going to Utah State. And so I was either in Logan or Ogden pretty much every weekend. And so I said, I don't know who's making these calls to you or whatever, but I said, I wasn't there. I said, yeah, I was at a party up at Weber State or Utah State, but nobody knows that.
Did he get it, or do you think he would? Did he think he believed you, or no?
No, I mean, we had a really good relationship. You know, he just said, look, you know, you're going to get scrutinized. People are going to be watching you. And I said, well, I'm just being a normal, you know, 18, 19-year-old, 20-year-old kid. Right. And I said, if that's weird around here, that's why I go to Ogden, because it's not weird up there. Everybody up there seems to be having a good time. No, but we had a really good relationship. And I think I was the last of his players that spoke to him on the phone before he passed. And yeah, he was a special guy. He didn't do a lot of coaching. He hired great coaches or really good coaches, and he let them do their job. I think that was his brilliance, because his coordinators came and went, but he'd always pretty much have the same plan. The new coach would bring in a new wrinkle here and there, but he kept the basic, you know, throwing the ball plan that he wanted. And he just let the coaches coach. And he always had final say in everything, no doubt about that. But he wasn't like a hands-on coaching guy. He'd stand back there and he'd observe, and he'd pull you aside and talk to you if he needed to. But yeah, we played a lot of golf together. You know, summertime, we'd play some golf, and he'd say, all right, if you beat me this year, then you don't have to do the 2-mile run, because we had this damn 2-mile run every year. And I'm like, if I got to run 2 miles, we're going to lose. I said, you know, that's why the O linemen get a job, have a job.
Did you ever beat him or no?
No, I never beat him.
After BYU, you were selected 5th overall in the NFL draft by the Chicago Bears. But what most people don't know is that you thought you were going to be picked by the Colts with the 4th pick. What happened?
Yeah, all indications were that year was that I was going to Baltimore. I'd been back to Baltimore a couple of times. I had lunch and dinner with Johnny Unitas at his restaurant. He was telling me about the city, how I'm going to love it, and this and that. And I had forgotten. I told my attorney I didn't really want to be in Baltimore. And so draft day came. I was just sitting at home with some family and friends and watching on TV. You know, nobody went back to New York or wherever they have the draft nowadays. We were just sitting at home waiting on a call. And I remember Rozelle getting up and saying, and with the 4th pick, the Baltimore Colts are taking quarterback. So I'm thinking it's me. And they said, Art Schlichter, Ohio State. And I'm thinking, wow, what happened? And my phone rang right away. It was my attorney. He goes, what do you think? And I said, what happened? I thought I was going to Baltimore. And he goes, well, you told me you didn't want to go there. So I told him not to draft you. I said, they couldn't even sign their running back at the time. So he told them, don't bother drafting me. They'll never sign me. So I had no idea who was picking 5th. And the next thing I know, I get a call from Chicago. They're up next. And they said, we're taking you. I said, okay. That's how I knew I was going to Chicago. All indications were I was going to Baltimore. So that was a big shock to me.
What was that moment like with your family on the couch getting that call? I guess it wasn't a surprise that you were going to be drafted, but still the feeling of finally making it.
Everybody was happy. And, my folks actually met in the city of Chicago. They were both in the Army back during the Korean conflict. My older brother was born in Chicago. That's the only thing I knew about Chicago. And I'd seen the movie Brian Song. That's the only things I knew about Chicago. And then I ended up there, 3 or 4 hours later, getting on a plane and showing up there.
And when you got drafted, or I guess when you were done at BYU, there was some rub with the administration that it's like when your eligibility ran out, they kind of moved on. What happened there?
Well, I got back from Christmas vacation after after the bowl game my senior year, and I was informed that I was no longer wanted or needed at the university. So I was asked to leave, which was fine by me. I mean, I was done. I had no more eligibility. Didn't want to go to school anyway. So yeah, I was. They said I was. They were just informed that I'd been doing all this illegal stuff while I was there. I said, look, I've been here 5 years. I mean, you guys, you know where I am at all times of the day, and you're just now finding out whatever you were finding out. I thought it was crazy, but yeah, it wasn't. I didn't leave on good terms, and that's why it took me forever to finish up.
It's a shame it ended like that. When you got to the Bears with the legendary coach Iron Mike Ditka, you treated him just like anyone else. That must have flustered him to no end because 99% of people were intimidated by him.
Well, we did have our run-ins, that's for sure. It was Mike's first year as well, and when we first time I ever saw him, I was walking into the Hallis Hall after 4 or 5 hours after I just got drafted. Got on a plane, flew to Chicago, had to go see George Hallis, and so I'm walking into the facility, and there's Mike Ditka, and he looked at me, and I'm standing there, and I got a couple beers in my hand because they were in the limousine, and he says, "You're my first round pick, huh?" And I said, "I guess so." That was our first words, but I always had a lot of respect for him. I think he did a good job when he first got there of getting rid of guys that were just kind of hanging around collecting checks. These 8-9 year veterans that were starters, and he cleaned house. He got guys in there that wanted to work, and we worked. I mean, there was no easy days. We played like 4 games a week. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday was like game day. Every situation was a live situation. Nobody was taking a play off, and about our defense, how good they were. Our offense was just as good. I mean, we didn't take any crap from those guys, and our practices lasted over 3 hours because there was fights on every play, and but we got things done, and we had a lot of respect for each other. Everybody talks about, there's a lot of conflict, but yeah, there was a lot of conflict, but there was a lot of respect too.
When you showed up, who were the leaders on the team, like from the players' side?
Well, offensively, of course, Peyton was not a vocal leader. He didn't rant and rave. I mean, he just did his job. I mean, he was very professional, and he led by example. And there was other guys on defense: Hampton, McMichael, Singletary, obviously. It's been so damn long. I kind of forget who was all there when I was a rookie.
Was there anybody when you got there and you saw, whether it was practice or even working out, whatever you saw, and just said, "Holy crap!" Like it was kind of almost like a welcome to the NFL moment?
Well, my first year there it was so strange because we had a strike. I think we struck after the third game of the season, so it was I think we only played 9 games that year, so it kind of felt like a college season, and so it was everything was weird about it. And we tried to get together as players and practice at like a high school field. I'm like, and I thought this was such a joke. I mean, I said, this is the NFL. We're over here practicing in some high school, literally with our car lights, like the old movies with Little League games, And I said, this is supposed to be the NFL. I wasn't very impressed.
Please tell us the story about how you missed the Wednesday practice and Coach Ditka didn't let you play. It was against the Vikings, I think, and you were in his ear, "Come on, you're not going to lose. Put me in before it's too late." And he put you in. And do you remember what happened next?
No, I remember that game very vividly. I was in traction, Sunday, Monday night after our previous game. And so, Thursday night game, very short week of practice. And so I came to practice Wednesday, and the Monday night crew was actually at our practice. So Namath and Frank Gifford and I think OJ, I can't remember who else was on the Monday night crew then. And they were sitting in the bleachers watching practice. And Ditka said, "Look, you're not playing." So I just went and sat over there with my idol, Joe Namath, and was talking to him. And he goes, are you going to play tomorrow? And I said, "Yeah, I'm going to play." And he says, "Why aren't you over there practicing?" I said, "Well, our offense hasn't changed in 4 years." I said, I don't know what I need to be in the huddle for." And he said, "Well, Ditka says you're not going to play." And I said, "Well, we'll see." So the very next night we go to, we get to the game, and it's amazing, what adrenaline will do for your body. I get there and I'd already taken, I don't know how many painkillers and muscle relaxers and a few shots everywhere. And I get out there and I start winging the ball around, and I'm throwing it pretty good. And I looked at Mike at pregame. I said, "Hey, if you need me, I can play." And he says, "You're not playing. You didn't practice. You're not playing." And so the whole first half, I'm watching what's going on, and we're getting behind, and it was just a different vibe. Defensively we weren't the same. Offensively we weren't the same. Steve Fuller wasn't playing poorly. It just nothing was happening. And I kept getting in Mike's face, going, "You better put me in. We're going to lose." And he's like, and I'm convinced to this day the only reason he put me in the game is to get him out of his face, because I was bugging the hell out of him. And so he gives me a play, and I actually called the play that he gave me. It was supposed to be a screen to the fullback on the weak side. And as I stumble away from the center, as if you remember the play correctly, I almost fell on my face. My legs were like spaghetti, all the damn muscle relaxers and painkillers I had in me. So I stumble away from the center. I see blitz, and blitz coverage, it's man to man. So whoever's going to have the fullback was going to run right to the fullback. And so as I planted and regained my balance, I looked downfield, and Willie Gault was just doing his job, what he does on a screen, just take his guy deep. And he was 10 yards past his guy. So I threw it to him. It was just a bang, bang play. My foot planted. I looked up, saw him, and I just let it go. And I got drilled. And we score. So everybody's happy. I get to the sideline. Ditka grabs me. "What damn play did you call?" And I said, "I called the screen." He goes, "Why'd you throw it to him?" I said, "He was open. We scored. What's the big deal?" And so he was so frustrated at me. I'm like, "Dude, I called your play. I just threw it to a different guy, and we scored." And then, we get the ball right back, and we scored again, and we end up winning the game. And that was that. I said, to me, practice was this game. If you don't have it mentally, I was always worried about getting my body ready to play. Cause I was sore all week long. And, the mental part of the game if I was sharp mentally, it didn't really matter. My body will do what it's been trained to do over the years. But as long as you're sharp and you know what you're doing mentally and you have confidence in your ability, knowledge is confidence. So if you know what the hell you're doing, you don't have to worry about all the other stuff most people worry about.
It's great when it works. You were also famous for changing the plays on Coach Ditka.
Well, I changed a few. Like I said, Mike was I had this discussion with him many times. I said, "Look, you were a tight end. You're a great tight end. I would love to play with you. And I would love for you to be in my huddle, because you understand that I actually know what the hell I'm doing. I'm not doing things here to just piss you off." I said, "I'm out here trying to win games. And what you're sending me in is not going to do it in this situation." And I said, "Just give me the freedom to call every play from the line of scrimmage. It's not that damn hard." But he liked to be in control, and he'd start saying stuff like, "We win because I'm a great coach." I'm like, "Come on. We had some pretty damn good players too."
Did you ever call a play and then it went back? Like if you call a play and it goes for a touchdown, it's a lot easier than if you change a play and it's like picked off. Do you ever have any?
Oh yeah. There was a lot of those too. I'm like, "Hey, I screwed up."
He wouldn't hold it against you. Just move on.
Oh, he'd hold it against me. He'd be in my face for the rest of the game. But, I said, "Look, my bad. Play's over. Okay, I'll get the ball again. I can't be harping on what just happened. We got a lot of game to play. You know, mistakes happen in the game. I'm not afraid to own up to, if I screwed up, I screwed up.
What do you think
Take me
gave you
out.
that? Yeah, that's right. What do you think gave you that? Was it just going back to your knowledge of the game and of the offense that it didn't bother you? Because a lot of people, especially now, it seems like more than ever in the NFL, like if a young quarterback gets kind of shell shocked, it seems like it can ruin their whole career, like getting them in too early. Where you seemed like it didn't, it just rolled right off your shoulder.
Well, what happened back when I was playing? Most of the guys coming out of college were running. Most of the quarterbacks came from running football teams. They're always turning around, handing the ball out. They never saw what the hell happened on the other side of the ball. And so I thought I was way ahead because that's all I did was see what was on the other side of the ball. We didn't hand it off much. And so nowadays, these guys are coming out of college from throwing systems. So they all should be versed in, defenses and coverages and stuff like that. So they're way ahead of where, guys were when I came out, just because of that fact. They throw it more in college.
I've heard you describe your time at BYU as not being fun, but regardless, you made up for it in the NFL, don't you think?
Well, I had fun at BYU. I got in a lot of trouble, but I had fun. Wasn't as fun as I probably could have had anywhere else, but I enjoyed having a good time. I mean, why not? We're not here for a long time. We're here for a good time, right? So let's enjoy it. Football, unless you're playing on, Friday night, Saturday afternoon, or Sunday afternoon, Monday night, or Thursday. Hell, they got a game every night of the week. Seems like now. That's the fun part. I said the rest of it sucks. I mean, practice sucks. Sitting in meetings for 3 hours sucks. Going over the same film you've watched over and over and over again. I mean, to me, I hated watching film because the film is filmed from the top of the stadium, right? You can see everything from up there. But I said, when you're standing behind these guys that are 6'5", I don't see a lot. I said, I gotta see where these guys are lined up as I'm coming out of the huddle. That's how I figure out what's going on. I said, I can't rely on what I saw from 500 feet up in the air. I like to just look at it and say, all right, this guy's lined up here. I can see this guy's 10 yards deep. He's not a threat. I mean, that stuff to me would click in automatically, but the film stuff just drive me insane.
You married the girl who you met in college. You had 4 children and were married for 27 years before getting divorced. What is your relationship like now? You had 4 kids together and some grandkids, so you must still run into each other.
Yeah, I see her once or twice a year, maybe. We have a great relationship. We're still good friends. Like I said, we were 18, and we, we're married for 28 years actually, and it's been good. Yeah, I don't have anything bad to say about her. I mean, we've raised 4 great kids. We got 7 grandkids right now, and enjoying them. And so, I wish her the best as well.
You were injured a lot in your career. I read 18 surgeries, but you never quit. Where did you get your toughness from?
Probably my mom, mom and dad. I mean, they just instilled in me that you got to work hard if you want something bad enough. You got to work for it. Nothing's going to given to you. And I worked. I had a lot of injuries. Had to come back from a lot of injuries, but I was used to rehab. I mean, it seemed like every off season I was in some kind of rehab, whether it was shoulder or knee or elbow or whatever part of my body I just had worked on. So I was used to the pain, used to the grind, and I just didn't want to quit. I mean, I quit. I retired at 37 because I had promised my daughter that when she got to high school that I'd quit because I didn't want to move while they were in high school like I had to do, because that was, like I said, that was rough. That sucked. And I didn't want them to have to go through that because they had just moved 8 years prior to that. We lived in a different town for 6 months, or not. They were there for, from September to usually December, and then they go back to our house in Chicago and go to school for the rest of the year. But that was tough on them. Always, the new kid at school for the opening, fall. And but I said, hey, you guys you've lived all over the country. You got to meet all these incredible people, made some great friendships, and I think that was kind of good for them. They seem to have enjoyed it. I mean, they're doing well now. They're all married and having kids, and so things are working well for them. I think that the exposure that they got as young kids helped them a lot.
When you were in the NFL, you were on a lot of, at the end of your career, you were on a bunch of different teams. And was there a, I guess, a best player that you played with? You played with a lot of unbelievable players. So I wonder if there's anybody you played with that kind of just jumped out as, like, again, whether it's just kind of freakish talent or freakish ability.
Reggie White, that name pops out to me. Reggie White was, he was a whole different kind of character, boy. He was a great football player, strong, fast, very religious. I mean, we played together in Philadelphia. I played with him in Green Bay as well. And they used to call us Buck and the Preacher. I guess you can figure out who the Buck is. But yeah, we had a great relationship. He would always say, Mac, I had these guys on the straight and narrow till you got here. I'm like, Reg, I'm just trying to let these guys know they can have fun too. I know football is a serious game, but you can have some fun as well. And the more fun you have, I said, that loosens you up. That adds to more victories. And I was glad to finally see him get a Super Bowl with us with the Packers. I mean, that guy was a hell of a football player.
Could you tell us about your experience with your shoulder and the injury that you had as a result of the Charles Martin's hit? Well, after the whistle, I might add.
Well, my shoulder was dislocated the first game of 1986, my throwing shoulder. And I should have never played after that. I should have got immediate surgery, but our team doctor, right, says there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, I could actually feel it coming in and out of the socket. Anytime I moved it, whether I just reached down to grab my kid or hand the ball off or throw the ball, it would pop out of the socket. And I kept telling these guys that for 10 weeks. Because one day I'd come to practice and I felt okay. I could throw the ball. Next day I couldn't move it. And so I kept saying, hey, there's something wrong with my arm. No, there's nothing wrong with it. They said they did an MRI. Nothing's, they couldn't find anything wrong with it. So they would just shoot it up. I go play. I think I only played 6 games in 86. And they'd shoot it every week. And then after that hit you're talking about, we had a bye. And so I go out to LA and I see Frank Jobe, the Dodgers team doctor, great shoulder and elbow guy. And within 5 minutes, he told me, hey, your arm's coming out of the socket. And I said, I've been telling these guys that for the last 10 weeks. And he said, you need surgery right now. And so our team doctor actually flies out, watches the surgery. And they cut me from the top of my shoulder down to my armpit. And as soon as he opened me up, our team doctor said, wow, he wasn't lying. I had no labrum at all. There was nothing there. And so he ended up trying to jigsaw puzzle piece all these pieces that he could find back to close up as much as he could. And he said, look, I don't know how long this surgery will last for you because you have a big chunk of the labrum that's still missing. And he goes, I've only done this surgery twice on 2 pitchers, and they don't take the abuse that you're going to take. So I don't know how long this is going to hold in there. But at least they knew there was something wrong. And that whole 1986 season, I was getting grief from some of the players, no offensive guys, some defensive guys. Ditka was, hot and cold with me because, like I said, one day I could practice, one day I couldn't. And I kept telling these guys, look, why are you questioning whether or not I've got a problem? I said, I played 2 years ago with my kidney was gone and I'm still playing in the game. I said, why are you questioning whether or not I want to play? And we had just won the Super Bowl the year before. I wanted to play. I wanted to repeat as champions. And so I kept, forcing myself to go through that pain. And that's how that season ended up. And I ended up having another surgery that off season as well to go in there and clean up whatever happened. So I missed the first half of the '87 season as well. Had to be on IR because it just wasn't ready. Had they done surgery right after that first game in '86, I would have been ready. Might even been ready for the playoffs. Who knows? Because my body tends to heal fairly quickly. Because he told me it would take 2 years for me to play again after he did that first surgery, and I was playing within 10 months. I was working out 3 times a day, going to therapy, and I went through some. I've never been through some of that kind of pain before, and just because I wanted to play, and to have some of these people questioning me was pissing me off.
Then Dan Hampton, he criticized you for essentially being soft. Why would he do that? And did you ever bury the hatchet with him?
He always had some different comments to say. I don't. It doesn't bother me. Everybody on that team knows. What I meant to it, and Steve McMichael and Hampton were close friends, and McMichael was always on my side as well. So I never really cared what he said. I haven't really seen or spoken to him about it. So that's all in the past as far as I'm concerned.
You had a great run with the Bears. You got to play with the likes of Walter Payton, Willie Gault, and the Fridge. Then you entered more of a journeyman phase. How many teams did you play for?
I ended up playing for 7. From Chicago, I went to San Diego for a year. Then I went to Philadelphia for 3 years. Then I went to the Vikings for a year. And then to the Cardinals here for a year. Then I went to Cleveland for about 10 weeks. And then I ended up in Green Bay for the next year and a half.
At that point in your career, where I read somewhere too, you were frustrated some of the places weren't letting you really compete for the starting job. They were more trying to have you kind of bring up their next franchise quarterback. Is that right?
No, I played in Philly, '91. Cunningham got hurt opening day, so I started there. I started in San Diego. Started with the Vikings. Went to the playoffs with the Vikings. I didn't play. I think I played 1 game with the Cardinals, none with the Browns. But then I got to Green Bay, and Brett Favre was doing his thing, and I probably could have went up to Green Bay 3 or 4 years earlier than that, but I just did not. There was a lot of bad blood between the Packers and the Bears when I played, and I just couldn't bring myself to go up there. And Andy Reid, who was on the staff then, who everybody knows now is the great coach of the Chiefs, he was my tackle in college. So I've known Andy forever, and he was the one that finally got me up to Green Bay. And I'm glad I did. It was the best organization I played for, top to bottom. They were just a classy organization. I got a lot of grief in Chicago for saying that, but they said, "Oh, you said they were a better team." I said, "No, I said they were a better organization. They weren't a better football team." I just had a good time. They treated me great. Mike Holmgren was a hell of a coach, and I got a nice ring out of it. So it was a good way to end. I got a ring from the 2 oldest franchises in the NFL, and not many other. I don't think any other players can say that.
What makes you say that there's a better organization? Just the way they treated the players?
Just the way they treated the players, the way they ran their organization. There was never, never any conflict. It didn't seem like. Just everybody it was like a big happy family. The team I think the town owns that team, so it's not like just one guy owns it. And so, it's a very different experience, that's for sure.
Did you have any other highlights of personal glory after you left the Bears?
Personal glory. I thought our team in '91 in Philly, we should have won the Super Bowl. We had the best defense in the league. But I had another injury-plagued season. I had a broken bone and a torn tendon in my throwing elbow. I tore my knee up that year, and I kept trying to play. And we ended up 10. We finished. We started the. I remember we were 3-5 at the midway point, and Rich Kotite was our head coach then. And I said, "Look, Rich, we got to win all 8, or we're not going to the playoffs." He said, "No, we win 10 games, we go to the playoffs." I said, "Look at the schedule." I said, "Right now, you got Washington's ahead of us, New York's ahead of us in our division." I said, "They're not taking 3 teams from the same division." And I said, "If we don't win 11, we're not going." And we ended up winning 10 games. We didn't go. We were 10-6. And I guarantee you, nobody wanted to play us in the playoffs with that defense that we had. And, we had some good talent on offense as well, but the O-line was a little bit suspect. So that was our downfall. But, yeah, I had some good times. I went to the playoffs with the Vikings, like I said. And then after the Vikings, I was pretty much just backed up after that.
It seemed like I don't know, I shouldn't say seemed like, but there were a lot of excessive hits on you. Do you think that was your people kind of taking cheap shots because of your kind of brash attitude and the way you carried yourself? Or do you think it's just, I know football was very different back when you and my dad played, but.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure a lot of guys wanted to take a shot at me. I didn't, that's just, to me, that was just part of the game. You're going to get hit. It's the really late ones that pissed me off. I mean, there's some that are questionable, but the really late ones, those are the ones that are like, I can't get a flag for that. I mean, nowadays you just kind of run past the QB, you get a flag for windburn or something. I don't know what the hell. I can't even watch it anymore.
You don't watch do you watch the NFL anymore?
Very little. Very little. I think I only watched about a quarter of the Super Bowl. I was kind of hoping my boy Andy would pull through and win 3 in a row, but I played for Philly too, so it was good to see Philadelphia win. But I was rooting for Andy. I wanted him to get that 3 in a row. That would have been nice.
I was going to ask if you had a player now that you thought there's nobody like, obviously no one like you, but if there was a player that you watched today, you said Joe Namath was kind of an idol for you. If there was a player now that you liked watching.
Oh, there's a lot of really good players out there. But I think Mahomes is good because he was a baseball player as well. He can throw the ball from any angle, and he's playing in a system where, it favors the quarterback. A lot of these guys end up going to, like, when I came out of college, I was excited to get to throw the ball around, and I get there and we don't have a whole lot of passing plays in our offense. I'm like, I was bored to death. 7 years I had to play in that offense.
You mentioned ending your career with Green Bay with my old roomie Brett Favre, and you got your second Super Bowl ring. That's not a bad way to end a 15-year career in the NFL.
No, I was very happy, excited to get that second ring, and it's a really nice one too. I mean, they actually spent some money on it. Bears didn't spend an extra dime on ours, but nobody's surprised about that.
You and Favre together must have been some combination.
We had a lot of good fun. Brett is he's just a good old country boy, man. He just likes to. Well, back then, I don't know. I've heard he's got Parkinson's now, and but he liked to throw the beers back and have some fun. Just sling that ball all over the park. Yeah, we had a lot of good times in our meetings, and I used to give him rides. From training camp, he'd always want to get on my scooter so he can avoid all the little kids. He'd have to sign all the autographs after practice. Give him a lot of rides all around town. Yeah, good guy. We had a lot of fun.
Somebody, I can't remember who, so my dad and him were roommates in Atlanta, and somebody said that they put my dad with him to try and calm him down, to try and calm Brett down. So I can't imagine you and Brett together. It must have been a ride. Do you have any good stories that you're allowed to share?
I can't think of one off the top of my head. It was just like, pranks, just stupid stuff guys do in the locker room, just
Sure.
Nothing really worth noting.
I read somewhere that you have early dementia. I get asked this question all the time, and it's a question that I put to you. Was it all worth it?
Well, I think it's got to be worth it. I mean, hell, like I said, it's been a good life. Other than the aches and pains, it's been a pretty good life. I only worked for 15 years, like I said, and it's gotten me to where I am today. So, um, yeah, I've met a lot of great people, played with a lot of great players. The friendships that you make, the different teammates that you've had. Uh, yeah, that's all. That's all worth it.
I know that you are busy with your charity fundraising for veterans, your advocacy for NFL players, and your cannabis business. That's enough to keep anyone busy. But are there any other things that you want to talk about?
I think we covered a lot of stuff. Anything else you guys want to hear from me?
I invite everybody to brag about their family and kids if they have them. What is your family up to?
Well, my two boys are both employed by the Wilson Sporting Good Company. They both work in the golf division. Both doing well. My oldest son is still living in the Chicago area. He actually moved back to the town that he grew up in, and his oldest daughter goes to the same elementary school he went to, so that's kind of cool. My other son moved up to Minnesota, where his wife is from. They just had their second baby. Um, he has a boy and a girl. My other son has a boy and a girl. My oldest daughter lives here in Arizona. She's got one boy. Um, and my other daughter lives in California. She's got two boys. And so I get to see them all together maybe once a year up in Lake Tahoe. They usually come up there for that golf tournament I play in. Yeah, it's nice when I get to see them, get them all riled up, and then send them home. It's kind of fun.
Now on to our final word segment, where we ask our guests a few rapid fire questions. What was the happiest moment in your life?
Obviously the birth of my kids, but I think the day I woke up in the hospital on that Wednesday and my kidney had closed up, that might be the happiest moment of my life, because that meant my career was still going on.
What is the biggest adversity you've faced?
Probably my attitude as a youngster. Like I said, I was a little hoodlum. And then I figured out if I stay on this path, I'm going to end up in San Quentin or worse, Folsom. So that was a shining moment for me to realize, hey, wise up, start doing things right.
What are you most excited about?
Well, just waking up every day. That's exciting enough. I just want to be able to see my kids and their kids, stay healthy, grow up, and be good citizens.
What advice would you give your younger self?
What advice would I give my younger self? Start earlier to do the right things rather than wait and get in all this trouble. Skip the trouble, just do the right things.
Skip that part. Do you have any book recommendations for us or for the listeners?
Any book recommendations? Well, it's been a while since I've read some books. I read a lot of military books, a lot of, I grew up during the Vietnam War, and that was always fascinating to me. I was in Iraq. I was actually there when they hung Saddam, and that was pretty cool to be in a war zone when the war was going on. But I can't remember a specific book.
The name of our podcast is Nothing Left Unsaid. Do you have anything you want to say?
All I want to say, Tim, is best of luck to you, pal, and I look forward to whatever the future is going to bring.
And then, Jim, before we let you go, the last question I always ask people, and that's how we met you, is at the end of the podcast, I ask all our guests, who's somebody that you know or a couple of people that you know personally that you think we should try to get on here next? Obviously, Ron Heller set us up with you.
Okay. I would say you should have Dave Archer on here. Have you ever had Dave on?
No, he hasn't come on.
Tim, I think Tim might have played with Dave down in Atlanta.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, Dave. I had more fun with Dave Archer probably than any teammate I've ever had. We laughed our ass off. We were in San Diego together, and then he came up to Philly. Funny man. But that would be my recommendation.
That's a good one. All right, Jim, thanks so much for joining us today. It was awesome.
Good. Hey, I appreciate you guys.
Actually, you know what? Let me ask one more question, because I asked. I'm so curious with your career, and you were such a good quarterback and all that. Who do you think are the top? Exclude yourself. You can't include yourself because I want to put that on you. But if you had to rank the top 5 quarterbacks of all time, who would you rank? Where would you rank them?
Oh God. I got to have Montana in there. I got to have Elway in there. Marino. Brady, obviously, for what he did. And guys playing now, Mahomes, Josh Allen. Those are the guys I would put up there at the top.
Yeah, that's a heck of a list. It's hard to argue with that one. All right. Thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
All right, guys. Thank you for having me. Best of luck to you, Timmy.
Jim McMahon, it's been a real pleasure talking to you. May God continue to bless you and your family, and thank you for your valuable time today.
Thank you. Same to you, my man.
Today's episode is brought to you by the ALS Investment Fund, a specialized biotech venture capital investment firm focused on neurodegenerative diseases, particularly ALS. They manage a large and diversified worldwide portfolio of ALS-related companies, collaborating with a global network of scientists, clinicians, foundations, and patient advocates to accelerate therapeutic development, investing for a world without ALS. Discover more about their mission and impact at alsinvestmentfund.com. If you enjoyed today's episode, consider supporting the podcast for free by subscribing on your favorite podcast platform, leaving a review, and sharing it with your friends. Your support means the world to us. This episode of Nothing Left Unsaid is brought to you by 11 Labs. Their groundbreaking technology makes a huge difference, and we're grateful for their support. To learn more, visit 11labs.io. A substantial portion of our sponsorship proceeds go to tackleals.com, funding cutting-edge ALS research. If you'd like to join the fight and contribute, visit tackleals.com. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time on Nothing Left Unsaid.